Now we have one of my favorite recipes, pork chop with Nancibella sauce. In case you don't know what Nancibella means Nancy the Beautiful. That's dedicated to my wife. Let me show you exactly what this is about, because I have a few secrets I want to share with you, especially on how to make the perfect pork chops. Pork chops are difficult to cook sometime, and they can create some problems. We have olive oil, nice and hot here in the pan. At this point, to just give some spice, we add the red pepper flakes right at the beginning of it. What we want is for this red pepper flakes to infuse the oil with a nice little bit of spice. Together with the red pepper flakes, what we're going to do is to add some chopped white onions. Chopped white onions to me are easier to digest. I have a problem with red onions, if you can believe that or not. If you don't want to use white onions, go ahead and use some shallots instead. And then we go with the herbs. Now, when we add the herbs, people say, why not adding the herbs at the end? Remember, this is to make the base for the sauce. So in terms of having the herbs cooking a little bit and becoming darkened, it's not an issue. What we want is their flavor, the oils that are contained within the herbs themselves, to now cook together with the other ingredients and make for us the type of wonderful culinary base and combination for the sauce that we'll show you exactly step by step and how to bring to fruition. So, parsley, fresh thyme. I prefer always fresh thyme. If you don't have it, you can use dry thyme, but be very aware of the fact that when it comes to dry thyme, you should actually crumble it very finely before you add it, because pieces of thyme will get stuck between your teeth. And then we go with garlic, chopped garlic. The reason why we're using chopped garlic instead of sliced garlic in this particular situation is because I want the garlic immediately to infuse with all the spices and bring out the flavoring base that we want. Now, we're going to let this cook for a few minutes. I would say 2 to 3 minutes. You want the onions to start softening a little bit. If you don't want the onions to darken, you can start adding some salt right now. But in this particular case, I don't care so much, because ultimately what we will do, we will strain the sauce. So the coloring of the ingredients is not that important. Next thing we do is we add our sherry on high heat. We'll keep cooking everything until the sherry evaporates. You're going to blast this one really nice and high. Once the sherry evaporates, at least reduces by half, then we go with the other liquids. And this is where things get interesting. Now, this next ingredient is not an ingredient that typically is part of my array of culinary palette. Is grenadine syrup. You know what you use to make the drink called, I don't remember what it's called. Shirley Temple. My wife loved her movies. What happened is, actually, we had some friends over, and they had a young daughter, and they say, why don't you make Shirley Temple for her? And I said, fine, I'll do that. I'll put that in. I'll just make it happen. And then I got left over with this. Open the refrigerator, and I say to myself, what can I do with this? So here we are, grenadine syrup, believe it or not, that we add into this. And what I love about it, it's going to bring out a nice, wonderful sweetness to it, unexpected. But we need to balance the sweetness with something else that plays against it. Remember, when you put together a sauce, if you're able to put the ingredients that start playing against each other, this is where the most interesting result comes out. And here we go with Worcestershire sauce. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Every time I say the name of the sauce, I always wonder to myself, how good was I at saying what I needed to say? Bring this to a boil. Once it reaches a nice boil and the ingredients start to collaborate together, you see that the liquids are reducing. In real world, I'll say 2 to 3 minutes of medium high heat should be good enough. Then you add the next liquid, and this is the beef stock. You can use beef stock, you can use chicken stock, whatever it is that you would prefer. You're going to let this on high heat. You're going to bring it to a boil. Once it reaches a boil, I want you to cover it with a pot cover and then reduce the heat down to a simmer. The reason why we like to reduce it down to a simmer is because at this point, something very significant is taking place. The steam coming from the sauce is going to bounce back into the sauce, and there will be a slow reduction that will get us exactly where we want to go. But let me show you my secret for making the perfect pork chops. Pork chops tend to betray us from time to time. How is that? Well, I'll show you exactly what I mean. Look at this, water. Can you believe that this is the secret of what I'm about to tell you? Water. We're going to make a brine. If you want to have successful pork chops all the time, you need to have a brine. Ooh, that rhymes. I should use that in a song maybe. And then sugar, plenty of sugar, at least a couple of tablespoons. Together with the sugar, a little bit of salt, and a little bit of pepper. Now, let me tell you more about this brine. I'm going to put it aside here for now. I want to show you what I've done with the pork chops, because it's important that you do this as well if you have the opportunity to do so. Pork chops usually are not Frenched. People don't like to do that. They do it the old-fashioned style. But I want to show you exactly what I've done with these pork chops. You see how nice and plumpy they are? I've asked the butcher to please French the pork chop. And Frenching the pork chops means the bone, as we have it here. I'm going to put it in perfect rotation so you'll see right there. Look at this. This bone has been Frenched. All the excess has been taken out. Just the bone alone is now left. Does this make the meat taste better? Not at all, but it gives it a wonderful look. But on top of it, what we have done, which is significant, we've actually tied the bone and the meat with kitchen twine. And what it does, it makes the makes the meat plump up. You see how nice and high this is? Now, before we start cooking this, what we're going to do, we're going to place them into the brine that we just made. And this is very important. Before we put them into the brine, let's just stir it about so the sugar and the water mix nicely together. You can do this in a Pyrex bowl just like this, or in one of those resealable bags. When you put the pork chops inside, make sure that you leave them for a minimum of 5 hours, and they have to be completely submerged. Or you can put them in the refrigerator and keep them there overnight. Overnight is better. When you bring them in and you keep them in there overnight, all the flavors go on the inside. But what do these flavors do? How effective are they? What do they create? Pork chops are a challenging cut of meat. They're challenging because they tend to dry very quickly on high heat, being the heat of a barbecue or being the heat of a pan. When you infuse them in water, exactly as we have done, one of the things that you actually achieve is that an enormous amount of water goes on the inside, the sugar and the salt as well, start giving flavor to the inner important part of the meat. When they finally are ready, you'll find them to be quite soft, but very, very wet. Before we can actually use them, this is what we need to do. We need to dry them on both sides. And this is why the stubble comes on board. You need to make sure that you pat them dry completely. Why? Either being the barbecue that you use or being the grill pan, as we're about to do right now. If there is any water left, it will tend to steam instead to cook. By assuring that they are dry and just coating with a little bit of salt and pepper, we ensure that they get the perfect browning. So here we go. Now our pork chops are nicely dried up, and we go with the flavoring that we want to put. A little bit of salt, both sides. And salt, I like to use sea salt always. And a little bit of pepper. Oh, go generous with it. Pepper is a fantastic spice. I love it. Last touch that we're going to do, before you put them on, you brush them with olive oil. You want the olive oil to create the nice sizzle and sear that we need for this. Now, we have the pan super, super hot. And it's important that you do that. Actually, it's searing hot. And you will see in a moment what I mean. And then we place the pork chops right on it. Once you put them in there, you want to cook them for about 2 to 3 minutes per side, depending on the thickness of the pork chop. After 2 to 3 minutes, you turn them, you do the same thing on the other side. If you like to have cross grill marks, what I suggest that you do is about 2 minutes this way, then you turn them a quarter turn, and you do 2 minutes on the other side. Now, stay with me, because what I want to do is going to clear up everything in here, and I'm going to come back in just a moment, and I'm going to show you how to make these pork chops look exactly like this.